It's another episode of Over Underrated with Fran and Babs. I hope everyone is doing well. It's our first part 2 episode. We're talking Britpop part 2. We, have healed from Oasis versus Shed 7, so much so that we can talk about the Verve versus Mansun today with special guest Tara Court. You'll see there's a lot of differing opinions here and slightly heated discussions, but all in a good-natured way. And I think we come to some nice conclusions at the end. So please go ahead and enjoy.
Over underrated. Sous-évalué. Überschätzt. Överunderskattad. Over underrated.
Welcome to the latest episode of Over Underrated. How are you, Fran, and what have you been listening to?
I am doing okay. Thank you for asking. And I am listening to Hayley Marie this week.
Who is Hayley Marie?
She is the lead singer of the band Jezebels from Australia. And she's been working on a solo album for the past 2 or 3 years with the guy from DMAs. And I love it. And that's the album.
Okay, two first names, sounding good. I've been listening to the new Tommy Genesis album. I don't know if you know her, Fran, but I think you'd hate her. Yes,
I'm aware of her work.
Yes,
I'm aware of her work.
She calls her music fetish rap, and she sings a lot about sex. And as we know from previous episodes, not exactly Fran's kind of thing, but I think it's a really good album. It's the first. Well, she's had two albums and EPs, and it's the first album that I really like as an album whole. And I talked previously about Halsey's "I'm Not a Woman, I'm a God" that I quite liked. She also has a song called "A Woman Is a God," and it's very good as well. So I recommend it. But we are not alone. We have another music fan with us today.
We do. We have Tara Court. Hello, Tara. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm good, thank you. Thanks for having me on, guys. It's really, thanks.
You are very welcome. Have you been listening to anything that you'd like to shout out?
I've been listening to Montero by Lil Nas X.
That is good as well.
It's a really, really good album. I just love him. I just love everything about him, how he is so unapologetically gay with everything that he does. I read a really good interview with him the other day where he said he didn't know what to do. He didn't know how to come out. And he just did it, and now he's just being completely unapologetic about it, and I love it. So you don't get a lot of that in rap.
Yeah, absolutely. And like visually he's incredible, and I think someone called him like an absolute professional troll, because every time he gets criticized he just takes it and flips it and does a music video about it or writes a song about it. It feels like he's kind of untouchable. He's really great.
He's fantastic.
However, for this episode, we are delving back into the past because this is Britpop Part 2. I think personally, I'm going to have a bit less issues with Britpop Part 2 than Britpop Part 1, just to let you know, Tara. Britpop Part 1 was Oasis versus Shed 7, and I really dislike Oasis. Here, I'm a bit more neutral or even interested.
Okay, cool.
What about you, Fran?
I guess we should call them Britpop-ish.
Britpop-esque.
Because they were kind of just two bands that are in the same era. I wouldn't really. I guess the album we're talking about is a little bit Britpop, but most of the other albums by these bands, they're just rock and roll or psychedelic rock. But yeah, so we are discussing the Verve and Mansun, and two bands I know very, very well because I was a teenager in the 90s. And it's the music that I grew up loving was the latter day Britpop. So I am excited to chat about it. And I have been looking through my old CDs like I was 17 again.
So Tara, why did you pick the Verve as Overrated?
If you notice by my track picks, I didn't pick This Is Music or History or Gravity Grave. I picked the stuff from A Northern Soul and the one that they had out after A Northern Soul, because possibly they just got played to death.
Urban Hymns, man.
Urban Hymns, sorry, yeah, Urban Hymns, yeah.
I suddenly had a crisis. I was like, did I listen to
no,
that?
it's me. Because I wasn't I was never an enormous fan of the Verve. I liked This Is Music and History and some of the other earlier stuff. So when they came back, like with Oasis, and when Echo and the Bunnymen came back as well, I was just sick of hearing Bittersweet Symphony. I was sick of it. I don't get me wrong, I've danced to them when I've been out when I was a teenager, but it just gets to the point where you're just like, oh, really? And I can't really say it's an artist thing either, because I don't like Richard Ashcroft, but then again, I'm not a huge fan of Paul Draper from Mansun either. So,
Well, Tara, when Fran sent me through the Verve playlist and I saw basically 5 songs that I like, I was like, is Tara mad? Like, what's going on here? But then I was talking to Fran about it, and he said, well, that Verve sounded very different before Urban Hymns, and actually I didn't, because I was only 10 in 1997 when everything was played to death, and it was played to death. I think most of the songs that you've picked have been, but it didn't bother me too much because I enjoyed it for the most part. And actually, because I was talking to Fran about it, he sent me some extra homework. He sent me a playlist called, I think, Verve 93 to 95, to give me a little flavor of what they sounded like. And I was like, oh yeah, okay, they do sound quite different before then. But yeah, my personally with Verve, I think they're a band I've always liked, but I have to say, a bit like the underrated pick Mansun, every time I've tried to go in a bit deeper and listen to more album tracks and go beyond the singles, it hasn't quite clicked for me. So, I can't claim to be a huge fan, but I saw Richard Ashcroft live in 2018 in Verve Classic in Belgium. He played a mixture of Verve stuff and solo stuff, and yeah, I find him very charismatic. I think even as a 10-year-old, I found him quite fit. So that was motivation enough to be bowled over. And I think I'd always enjoyed Verve lyrics, and actually kind of sitting down and listening to them again, I thought, yeah, I still do, and I still think they're quite clever. So yeah, I'm looking forward to getting into it and hearing more about why you dislike the particular songs you've picked.
I remember my first girlfriend, who has a link to both these bands. She bought History on CD single, and she cried whilst listening to it, because at that time they had just broken up, and that was going to be the Verve's last ever song.
Yeah.
So History was a very apt title, and I like that song. And then I remember going through and discovering Gravity Grave, which I thought was a brilliant track, and it sounds nothing like that era. It's like psychedelic guitars, and it's like it goes on for like 6-7 minutes of looping, instrumentation. And apparently, I think when they first got together, like, they didn't have choruses, just had jams, and the producer had to tell them to repeat sentences to have at least a chorus. Otherwise, it was just a meandering jam for 10 minutes. So it's kind of strange how they then became that 1997 band we're going to basically talk about, which is kind of a Richard Ashcroft solo album, really.
Yeah, pretty much.
And that's kind of why it sounds very different to the first 2 albums. But yeah, I mean, I love Bittersweet Symphony, and then I kind of put them into the bland part of Britpop alongside Embrace, as like, hey, we've got an orchestra. Let's add an orchestra to everything. So yeah, so I can see why we are talking about this band as overrated. But so we go into the playlist.
Let's do it, so I can disagree with both of you vehemently. Yeah.
Overrated.
So what's the first song you picked?
Bittersweet Symphony is the most overrated of the Verve tracks. And I am that much of a horrible person that when they had to sign over all of their royalties to the Rolling Stones, I was happy, because I was so sick to death of hearing it. When I went out, it'd be on the football, it'd just be on adverts, I know that they've re-agreed, and I think the Stones have given them back, I don't know if it's the whole percentage or they've given them a percentage, but I don't know, you couldn't escape it, because I was 18 in 1997, so I was just going out, and I was started going out in the Britpop era, and every week I could guarantee you would hear Daydreamer by Menswear, you would hear Dolphin by Shed 7, and you would hear Bittersweet Symphony, and it'd pretty much be like that as well in those, and there was really nowhere else to go, so you go out and then you can't dance to it either. I think because all my friends were in love with Richard Ashcroft as well, and I was just like, oh, come on.
Is he a dish? I never thought he was
to me.
Is he really?
No,
But I like them tall, skinny, and broody, and
Okay.
that's not everyone's taste. I know.
It is, and it is, and it isn't, and I can kind of see it. But he looks like he's been punched in the face.
But he's got lovely
But that's
sensual lips. Surely, come on.
That was
Well,
probably
yeah, actually, that's
Nick McCabe probably did that though. To be fair,
yeah, with his guitar. Yeah, I liked it when it first came out, and I bought the CD single, and then I maybe listened to it twice at home because it was everywhere else, so I didn't actually need to listen to it. I never got how they got to be so successful. Aside, I mean, Richard Ashcroft's voice is okay; it's not great. McCabe's guitar playing is great, but there again, I couldn't name you the other two members of the Verve because they were the only two that ever got any press. So,
and you can't hear any guitar in that song, can you? You just hear strings and
it's the
strings and drums,
yeah.
isn't it? Really?
Yeah, exactly.
Is Nick McCabe even on Urban Hymns?
He was added at the end, so
Right, okay.
yeah. Basically, they replaced him,
Mhm.
and then last minute, Richard Ashcroft said, "Oh, we need him back." So he came on and added his guitar to all of the songs, but I can't really hear. I think I heard it live, and you can hear him play guitar live, but on the actual main track, it just literally all you can hear is a sample and the drum beat. Really,
Yeah.
Are you a fan?
I'm a huge fan of this song. I can totally agree with you on it being overplayed, but for me, something like Wonderwall or Don't Look Back in Anger was way more overplayed and way more annoying than this, and yeah, I just didn't like it. I didn't dislike it as much. I think I like the way this album in general uses strings and how it mixes it with synths. It's a great title. It's an evocative lyrics, iconic video. You know, for me, it has it all. Yeah, I was thinking, Tara, when you were saying that you can't dance to it, I imagined did people not just like pretend to walk down the indie club bumping into people? I'd go for that dance routine. And I wondered, you know, given that you said that the Verve was overplayed, do you feel like you've softened a little bit putting this playlist together and probably listened to these songs for the first time in ages, or is it still sort of traumatic memory?
So I'm not, you know, I have enjoyed revisiting because they're not played every single Thursday, Friday, and Saturday night
At
when
the
I used to
indie
go
club,
out.
yeah. Fran, what do you think?
So when it came out, and obviously I was watching this on MTV, and the video was amazing and it sounded amazing. I got hurt when I found out it was a sample. That it's like, really? I don't know. It kind of, no, it ruined it for me a bit. Yes, I loved it, but I agree with Tara. You know, by a month later, I would just skip it instantly. So I can't say it's an overrated song because I remember the feeling when I first heard it, when those strings first, you know, came through the speakers. It was like, oh my god, this is different, and yeah, and I adored it. But yeah, it's hard. It's hard now. I would probably not listen to the whole song. But I've only heard it once live when I saw Richard Ashcroft at Isle of Wight 2005, and he had a saxophone player during some songs, and I joked to my mate, it'd be horrible if he plays Bittersweet Symphony on a saxophone, and then, oh yeah, at the end, out comes the saxophone. And literally, I wanted to start. So I've heard the worst version possible of that song.
Wow.
It does not work surprisingly with a saxophone instead of strings, to be fair.
Who knew? Who knew?
Who knew? That was an awful gig. He kept saying, "Bring back the troops, Tony! Bring back the troops!" I was like, can we have some fun now, please, Richard Ashcroft? No. Yeah.
2005. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. It was like about 3 years after the event as well. It was like,
Yeah.
okay, we've moved on since then.
He was still angry about it. Still angry.
He's very angry. But yeah, I wonder if are the lyrics about the band? Is that his Bittersweet Symphony?
I just think it's about life.
Is it?
Yeah, it's about life. And what I quite like is because it's like, you know, the whole you're a slave to money and you die. It's just sex and violence, melody and silence. I guess what's nice about the music video is I guess it's him trying to overcome that. It's like, doesn't matter what obstacles you put in my way, I'm gonna keep going no matter what, and no matter who's engaging with me. Although I read that there's an alternative music video to Bittersweet Symphony where he gets beaten up or something and then puts his hand through I was like, that's a very different meaning and different ending.
Not surprised. I don't know how he didn't get beaten up in the first one. Genuinely, like there are some bits that are staged, and then there are some bits that you don't. You know, there's that old guy, he pushes that woman out of the way, and that's that old guy just having a go at him. And I don't know how he didn't get hit. Maybe he did.
I wonder how many takes it was to do the video.
Yeah, I guess
what I like about it as well, though, it's a riff on Unfinished Sympathy by
Mm-hmm.
Massive Attack with Shara Nelson, the video as well, because that's her walking down the street.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I like that they've taken that from it.
Yeah.
It's strange though, isn't it? Like we talk about music now and videos being as one, but it's very rare you hear a modern song and even know what the video is.
Yeah.
Apart from maybe WAP. But it's or
Little
Baby,
Nas X
or
as
Baby
previously
Shark.
discussed. Yeah.
But yeah, it's kind of weird, isn't it? With a lot of the songs of the 90s, as soon as I hear the music, I see the music video, and it's kind of faded away now, isn't it?
I have a feeling that it's like people are still watching music videos, but it's not as wide an audience. It's more like people watching and rewatching, or the fans who watch and rewatch. But yeah, as much as I like Bittersweet Symphony, still I have to say it's not my favorite urban hymn song. That's one that's coming up later. So let's see. But what's
I'll batten down the hatches for that then.
What's your next pick, Tara?
The next one is The Drugs Don't Work, also from Urban Hymns.
So why did you pick this one?
I'm anti-drugs. And I think it possibly in my naivety, I'm like was ridiculous naive when I was like a teenager. So I thought it was about drugs. I don't know what it's about because I haven't explored the Verve's lyrics and then thinking back, it could be about antidepressants or anything else, it's a downer, but there again, loads of songs are downers, I think the most recent albums I've been listening to have been massively downers. I'm a Smiths fan, for crying out loud, so I know a downer. It sounds like I've got a real vendetta against the Verve. I really don't. It's just
gonna clip that and put that as the trailer, by the way. Yeah.
It's just the stuff they did before Urban Hymns was better.
Okay.
And it's like they sort of, I don't know if they sort of they had to move with the times because it was Britpop and kind of re-evolve into a Britpop band so that they could have those lads fans and, the Adidas Gazelle wearers. And this is the thing. I don't dislike any of these songs, genuinely don't. Having listened back, I don't. But I just always thought that the Verve had more opportunities than other bands, and they were just okay.
Yeah, I mean, I would say this was as overplayed as Bittersweet Symphony in my opinion. And yeah, this is one I don't like so much because it's a bit ballady. You've got the country guitars in the background, but again, like with Bittersweet Symphony, I think it uses strings really well and it's very evocative lyrics. So Taria, I thought it was about how drugs are bad. That was my initial thinking. Then I went to look at the lyrics again, and I looked stuff up, and apparently Richard Ashcroft said, "There's a new track I've written. It's called The Drugs Don't Work. That's how I'm feeling at the moment. They make me worse, man, but I still take them. Out of boredom and frustration, you turn to something else to escape." So I think you were correct that maybe they weren't as anti-drugs. So yeah, I would say this is one of my less favorite songs from Urban Hymns, but because it's not one of my favorites and it was the first time I listened to it in ages, it had a nice nostalgic glow for me when I listened to it. What about you, Fran?
It is very MOR Verve, isn't it, really? You can listen to this with a cup of tea. This is when they went from being cool rock stars to like Radio 2 friendly. And the actual melody is identical to Crowded House, Better Come Home Soon. I've seen Neil Finn start playing the song and then going into Better Come Home Soon to prove it. But I don't think he matters. I've also heard that this is about his father as well, in another interview later on. But how rock stars are, they keep changing the meaning of their songs, don't they, really? But again, I think it relies maybe on the orchestra. I think that in the late 90s, from like 96 onwards, every indie band was given a budget and suddenly they all had orchestras, even if they needed to or not. Like I think that when Suede first did it with like Dogma and Star, it was quite unusual to have an orchestra. And then by 95 you had Shed 7, Embrace, Dodgy, everyone had an orchestra for their slow song to give it a bit more extra gravitas, for example. And I guess sadly bands can't afford to do that anymore because no one's going to be given the budget as they had back in the 90s. They'd be lucky to get a violin player, let alone a full piece orchestra. So I guess when you've got the budget, go for it. But
just go for it.
But I've always found this and another song we're going to mention just really bland. And I remember being quite frustrated, thinking, I thought they were for like, a proper like rock band like Stone Roses, and these are not rock songs. There's no riffs, there's no there's nothing you can grab hold or mosh to or dance to. So I found it a bit strange why people are adoring the Verve. By this point, I kind of got bored of them. And
so interesting that you say that, because I really think that clouds judgment differently, because when I went to listen to Fran's 93 to 95 playlist, I was like, all right, this is very different. But actually, I thought it was a lot more derivative. I thought it basically sounded like Ride or another shoegaze band, whereas I don't think the specific, the sound of urban hymns, maybe there's one or two bands you could compare it with, but I do think it is quite original, and especially in how they use guitars and strings. But maybe that's because I'm not so well versed in Britpop, and I had no idea that Dodgy ever used an orchestra and would have never guessed it in a million
If you're thinking of me. And like Embrace, it became that sort of
You've
production.
really got it in for Embrace, haven't you?
You know what? The sad thing is, I actually like Embrace. I prefer Embrace to the Verve. But I mean, I don't own any Verve albums. I like History. I like Slide Away. I like Gravity Grave. They're the songs I'd probably listen to. Everything else, I don't hate it. It would just go over my head.
It's just there.
And
it's just there. Like, I listen to History, This Is Music, Gravity Grave, and that's about it. Like, I will listen to this if it came on the radio, I wouldn't switch it off. It did just seem to be more lad rock.
See, that's really interesting, because to me it's not at all, like, because his lyrics seem so much more sensitive, like, especially on some of the later songs we're going to discuss. Like, it isn't just about booze and gals.
But we have learned that lads don't listen to the lyrics. Have you seen
that's true.
Design for Life? They have no idea what that song is, an anti-drinking song, but they still sing it like a football anthem. So they probably haven't listened to the lyrics, perhaps.
I mean, they look like lads for sure, but to me they did, especially lads and strings, I wouldn't put together either.
But no, I think you're right. It's by lads, I do mean the way they look, and the fact that they are a guitar band, and so they will have got lumped in with Oasis. Like, Blur weren't particularly a lad band, but then they came out in they did become a lad band when they did The Great Escape, and they did that video with Damien Hirst with the Page 3 women in, and that I hated that. Because they were never that. They didn't start out that way, and they didn't need to become that. But I think it was just at the time going out. When I was youthful, that's all the lads would be wearing Verve t-shirts or Oasis t-shirts or whatever, and so I don't class the lyrics as lads lyrics. It's just the scene at the time where it was just very much lads and lads and Adidas and Carlin.
You know how like bands like the Kings of Leon, when their fourth album came out, Is It Only the Night, became a massive success. Everyone would go on about the early albums. Is it the same sort of thing? Like, for me, I preferred Elbow's first three albums to Seldom Kid, and then that made them massive. Is it that it's a frustration that guys, why are we not listening to them earlier? These albums have...
I don't know. I used to be like that. My husband always jokes that I used to be an awful music snob. Like, really did.
Yeah.
And then one night I was drunk in a nightclub and the DJ played Livin' La Vida Loca, and I got up and danced my ass off. So it's like I couldn't be a music snob after that. Sometimes I do have a degree of, well, you're listening to this when... That's what wound me up about the Kings of Leon, because Youth and Young Manhood is a fantastic album. The first two, maybe three albums are really good. Then Sex on Fire comes out and it's dreadful. I remember at that time saying that the new Kings of Leon song was like The Emperor's New Clothes. I didn't get it. I didn't get why people loved it so much, because to me it wasn't them. It wasn't what I was used to with them. So I had to... A friend of mine is in a wheelchair and she needed a carer to go with her to see the Kings of Leon, and she asked me and I went, and I was just bored. Like, I got to go for free and I was just like this.
Kings of Leon, I could not agree with you more. The first three Kings of Leon albums are excellent, and they are one of the most boring live bands I've ever seen. And I saw them, I think, just before Sex on Fire came out, so I was dead excited because, you know, I liked all their stuff. And it was at a festival. They had no chat. They just played the songs as on the album. I might as well have stayed home, and I was just like,
Exactly.
wow. I think, you know, it's not like I've to be a good gig you have to have in between chat, but I think you need either in between chat and or music being a bit different than on the album, because if there's none of that, then yeah, you might as well have stayed home.
What I did find interesting with the Verve is that I watched them live today, and they are a more interesting band live than they are on record, because they don't rely on the orchestras, and Nick could play his guitar more, and they had more grooves, and Richard Ashcroft was like adding lyrics and, you know, going for it. So they are a better live band than they are, I think, on record. And I think if I saw the Verve in 1997 live, I would probably like them more.
Yeah.
But I'm going by the, you know, the videos and the sounds I heard. And when I listened back to the album today, and is Urban Hymns an album which has 5 Vega songs and a lot of songs everyone's forgotten about, or is it an album that people love all the songs for it? Because it was always held as, like, you know, up there with OK Computer in 1997, and I find that insane, because I don't like one other song apart from the singles on Urban Hymns. Babs, are you a fan of
no, because every time I've tried to get into Urban Hymns the album, it just doesn't work for me. So yeah, like I said at the beginning, and well, the one song that you've picked from another album, Tara, like same, I actually quite enjoy it, but tried and failed. Although, yeah, did you guys know that Urban Hymns is the 18th best selling album in UK chart history? It sold over 10 million copies.
And what's even interesting is that was one of the only Britpop bands who did okay in America. They toured America quite a lot, didn't they? The Verve.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, they did okay. You know, I think they did better than Oasis. I think.
Is it because they're lucky men, or
I see what you've done. I see what you've done. I mean, Richard Ashcroft is very charismatic. He is. I mean, for all what I've said about him, he's quite a charismatic frontman from what I've seen. But they're just not me. So I have got a fact about Urban Hymns.
Go on.
Go for it.
Yes.
It was released 24 years ago today.
Yes. I think, was it the Radio X Instagram account?
I saw it on Shine On, because I go to the Shine On festival down in Minehead, and I saw it on their Instagram page today. So yeah, 29th of the 9th, 1997.
Yeah. Over underrated. Sous-évalué. Überschätzt. Sopra sottovalutato. Over underrated.
Yeah, and so what's your next pick from this iconic album?
You've already gazumped me with it.
Spoiler alert.
Man. Yeah, Lucky Man. It's fine. It's a man and a guitar. Sorry, I saw your reaction there when I said it's fine. You know, like, you could reach through the screen and hit me.
I'm not going to hit you. Don't worry. No, this is my favorite Verve song by a mile. It makes me cry often when I listen to it, not because it's so bad, before you say anything. When the strings build at the end, the lyrics. I mean, the video, all I remember is man playing a guitar in a flat with some bored looking flatmates. But I think, again, with the Verve, it's very strange, because Fran and I often talk about how we don't really pay attention to lyrics, but with basically all the songs from Urban Hymns, I can't help but hear the lyrics. I feel like, I don't know if it's the clarity of Richard Ashcroft's voice, or because, you know, they're deceptively simple, but I find it like a really joyous celebration. And again, I enjoy it being about a theme that not so many people write about. Although I will say, it's not my favorite song called Lucky Man. My favorite song called Lucky Man is by Emerson, Lake and Palmer. So there we go.
Looking at the lyrics, they are quite miserable, aren't they? They are they are anthemic and miserable, which is a bit like the Smiths, I guess. I think it's a northern tradition, because the Barrigan talk about Letter One also has a lot of miserable lyrics in an up-tempo way. Yeah. So I think that's part of the Lancashire kind of thing, you know. I knew that the Verve had become Radio 2 Gladness when my cousin Rupert asked me on Boxing Day 1997, have you heard of the band The Verve? I quite like the song for Lucky Man. And I thought, oh, that's it. If Rupert's a fan, then they are no longer cool.
Now.
Sorry, Babs.
Oh, it's fine. It's fine. Yeah, no, it's quite fun to kind of be against two people. I don't mind, but like I said, I do think I have a bit of a different relationship being a bit younger. Also, I have to say, because I was 10 when this song came out, I remember the lyrics. I'm stood here naked, smiling, I feel no disgrace. And I remember being like, he's the pretty man's talking about being naked. So that might be an influence. An early dirty-minded Barbara, but there we go.
But the next song is quite different, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. What's your next pick, Tara?
Love is Noise from the 2008 album. Yeah, that one thing that sticks out, I was in between jobs. I got a job. I was temping in a place that made incontinence stuff. So like incontinence pants and incontinence pads and stuff. And we'd have the radio on, it would be Radio 1. And the two songs I remember constantly being played was that one, I Like You So Much Better When You're Naked. And
Ida Maria.
Yeah, and Love is Noise. And listening to Love is Noise, those noises at the start, I forget who it was. One of the presenters said it sounds like the Teletubbies, and I can't unhear that now. You know, that bit, and it's just, yeah, it is. I don't think that spoiled it for me. It's just a plodder. It just plods along. It doesn't really do much or go anywhere.
It was I first heard this on a Glastonbury headlining set, I think that year. And it was quite a shock because it didn't sound anything like you'd expect the Verve to sound like. It kind of, listening back today, it kind of sounds a bit like Keane. That's a production of it more than the Verve that did the Simps. And that is Richard Ashcroft. Apparently, I don't know, you guys probably read the same thing, but he was doing a loop on a vocoder to the other song Columbo. And then they thought, oh, that sounds quite cool. And then they built the song around him looping. So that is his voice on a vocoder going, and then that's how they created the track. But yeah, it's I guess it was a decent pop song. It was very unexpected. I then tried to think of any other song off the album and couldn't think of one, which is quite incredible. I then listened to the album today, and I think I knew Rather Be, which is also kind of very average track. It's a very strange album for the Verve to do. It seems like that they weren't in, the hearts weren't in it at all. It doesn't sound anything like any of their other albums.
No, it sounds like they just did it for the money.
And then it petered out really fast, and that was the end of the Verve. Yeah. Babs, what was your thoughts of Love?
So I quite like the song. I feel, Tara, I feel like the Verve are following you around or something. I feel like you've been somehow cursed, because you're saying that, yeah, they were everywhere when you went out, and also then when you were working. I think Richard Ashcroft's after you, and I understand
he's stalking me.
I think he is stalking you, because I don't remember this song stalking me at all. I remember it. I think I must have had some access to Music TV, because I remember the video quite clearly. I think probably the first time I saw it was with the video on TV. I remember thinking like, okay, this is not quite a return to form like Urban Hymns, because that's all I knew, but it's enjoyable enough, and it's it's not a song like Lucky Man that I'll put on repeat and get very emotional about, but I quite like it. I like the driving drums, bass and synths. I think all the instruments are working in unison. The lyrics a bit less evocative and interesting compared to Urban Hymns, but
they're quite simplistic lyrics, aren't they?
For this one, yeah.
There's nothing behind them. I mean, I know you said like there are things behind the lyrics on Urban Hymns, but no, there seems to be no substance. It's just like, right, what can I do? I'll just crack out a few lyrics. We're away. Let's go.
Yeah, I think one thing that I haven't mentioned yet, I do quite like Richard Ashcroft harmonizing with himself. I think he does that well, and I knowing now that it's him doing the voices, I quite enjoy that, and I think that's where on Urban Hymns it improves. Like in Bittersweet Symphony, when he says it's just sex and violence, melody and silence, but that's over like him repeating other stuff on top. It makes it so much better. But here it works, but it doesn't work as well.
And then finally to my favorite song by the Verve.
Oh, okay. I've ruined both your nights then. It's Sonnet by the Verve from Urban Hymns. I guess if I had to, that's probably my favorite one off this album. That's why it's at the bottom of the list.
Because I would say that this is my least favorite of the list.
Oh, okay.
And I feel like this one was overplayed. more than Lucky Man in my experience, or maybe it's just because it's so drony. But yeah, so despite it being your favorite, do you still feel it was overplayed? Why did you pick it in the end?
I just quite, I don't know, I quite like it. It didn't annoy me as much. Now, do you know what? If I was to go and put this album on now, I could sing you all of these songs word for word because I know them. Whether that's because I've heard them a lot, it will be because I've heard them a lot because I've never owned a Verve album. But I don't know, I think it's just, I'd like the lyrics. My friend and me looking through her red box of memories. I think it's quite nice. And it's, is it his friend? Is it like his ex? Or it's just a nice, and I like the word sonnet as well. It can be as simple as that.
Yeah.
I think his voice is really good on it, this one.
So Fran, it really is your favorite. You weren't being
I just think that the melody just stood out. Like, he could play that on acoustic guitar, and the bit where it goes, "Oh, there's love." If as soon as he sings that part, I'm on board. It's got such a great melody all the way through it, and as you may have heard before, I'm a fan of the melody, and I love the guitar sounds, perfect. And I love the way at the end it sort of changes. Like, it could go back to the chorus. You think it's going to go back to the original chorus, but it changes direction. I can just listen to it again and again and again. And I've probably not heard this at that time. It was the other 3 songs that were on repeat. This wasn't heard as much. I think it might have been the last single of the album. So by then, people, may have not been as excited by the 4th single. But and I just think it's a perfect northern pop song.
Yeah, no, I really like the guitar on it as well, like the little ching bit, that. I really, it's the best. It's not the best Verve song. The best Verve song is "This Is Music," but that's why I haven't picked that because it's not overrated.
It's quite funny that even on this I disagree with you. Like I said, I don't really like this song. It sounds like Blur to me more than anything else, and not necessarily the Blur that I like. But on re-listening, I really like when he goes "My Lord," because it almost sounds like there's going to be a time change. Like it kind of wrong foots you. And I hadn't really thought about that. And I guess the ending, as you said, Fran, of how you don't know what direction it's going to go in, and it kind of ramps up. That's quite good. But yeah, it's a bit drony for me. Like I'm not such a fan. So apologies. But listen, we have reached the end of this playlist, and I'm sure the chat is going to be very different for the next one.
So are we going to mention Richard Ashcroft these days? He's gone
I think we should, given who we're talking about in the later band as well. So Fran, I think Fran, you were telling me about it because I was out of the loop a bit on this one, but didn't he pull out of playing Venue?
I mean, he's always been a prickly character, hence why the Verve don't exist anymore. And it's always like my concert when you get banging on about bring home the troops, Tony. And then he's joined Ian Brown in refusing to play to any concerts or festivals that allow vaccinated people in, even though that he was a massive drug person in the 90s.
That's the thing.
But
so many anti-vaxxers I only know 1 or 2, but like definitely did drugs, and I'm like, I don't understand.
Eric Clapton was saying, I'm not going to do any gigs. The biggest cocaine head in the 1970s. I had to renege on that though. He played a festival or something the other week that let vaxxed people in. So
did he really?
Yeah, he hasn't got the courage of his convictions. Not like old Van Morrison.
He's a racist prick. So.
I think
he is.
Ashcroft even said that the first album was written on acid, and so it's like, oh dear. So and I was going to go to see him at Victorious, and will I ever see him live? I don't really care.
I mean, he is good. Like I said, when I saw him in 2018, it was good, and that's when I went to sort of check out his solo stuff a bit more. I'm absolutely obsessed with "Check the Meaning" by him. Song for Lovers. That's an overplayed song. I'm not such a fan of.
I did like it at the time.
Yeah. But check the Meaning. Like I get obsessed with it every now and again, and I love to listen to like the long 8-minute version. And I think it might be one of my top played songs this year because I just went into a little groove. But again, like with the Verve, and I'm like, okay, let's check out a little bit more. It doesn't quite click, but live, very good. So maybe like you were saying, Fran, similar with the Verve, just you need to watch it live to experience it properly.
I think he's a frustrating songwriter. I think with a different personality, his talent could have done a lot more, if that makes
Yeah.
sense, And
Yeah.
I feel like his personality has kind of halted his creativity, unfortunately. He might have worked with some other people, and unfortunately
it could be that swagger though, because like a lot of people from the north have that swagger. I say a lot of people from the north. The Gallagher brothers, they have that swagger, don't they? Which is like, oh yeah, well, I'm this and I'm that, and it's my way or this. And but then they still went on and did a lot better solo. In fact, I'm loving the fact that Liam is doing better than Noel, I have to say. I love that fact so much.
Yeah, especially after BDI, it's kind of a redemption, isn't it, for him?
Yeah,
a little bit,
yeah, it is. Yeah, it is.
I didn't realize that Richard Ashcroft was known as Mad Rich, that Melody Maker called him Mad Richards after A Storm in Heaven, because apparently, already then it was difficult. But Nick McCabe as well, I think, was it? No, it wasn't John Leckie. Again, in this article that I was reading that I need to share with both of you, someone said that Nick McCabe is the most talented musician they've ever worked with, but also the most annoying. So I think it's not just Richard Ashcroft who's a bit difficult, perhaps, and that might be part of the problem.
So, are we going to ask the question, Babs?
I think we are. Are Verve overrated? I think Tara, making this playlist, I presume, hasn't changed your mind.
Maybe not as overrated as I thought they were, but they still are a bit.
I would say that they are a decent indie band. I can probably make a 10-track playlist I would enjoy, but saying they were the 18th highest selling album of the was it history or just
it was the 18th best-selling album in UK chart history as of 2019.
Yeah, that is crazy. They did not deserve to have that many records, but they're a perfectly adequate 90s guitar band, and no more than that for me.
I think for me, like they have a whacking over 6.5 million monthly listens, which surprised me. And 4 of the 5 songs on this playlist are the most listened to. So on the one hand, maybe you could call them overrated, but actually the fact, Fran, that you gave me that homework to go and listen to different music, and what you've both been saying is they sound very different and that's not listened to, it would really make me think that they're actually underrated, because they are more than Urban Hymns. And even if Urban Hymns isn't a great album, it's just a great collection of singles, there's clearly more there to explore. So I will hold off on calling them overrated until I do some more exploring, and until those albums are better known.
That sounds like a fair cop.
Yeah, it does.
We're not going to get any hate mail from that.
Over underrated. Sous-évalué. Überschätzt. Sopra sottovalutato. Over underrated.
So that was the end of part 1. I have to say I'm pretty proud of myself, of the conclusion that I came to, trying to be very diplomatic in the Verve being overrated or not. I definitely do think it's worth checking out Verve pre-Urban Hymns, because it sounds very different. And I kept mentioning this article that I read about the guitar sounds from the early albums, and it's super interesting. So I do recommend checking that out. But now we're going to get into it with 2 Mansun superfans, Tara and Fran. Let's talk about one of Britpop's forgotten heroes.
It's an S-Pod thing, the podcast revisiting S Club 7's insane TV show.
Yeah, I can't imagine anyone's binge-watched this, anyone who's not on drugs.
Thank you for bringing this into my life. It was honestly truly appalling.
Guests helped me analyse the show in more detail than anyone ever asked for.
It feels weird to me to say the phrase sex object in a show that was aimed at 6-year-olds.
Do you think this is one of the problems with this show, is that 7 is too much?
It's an S-Pod thing from Great Big Owl.
So welcome to part 2, talking an underrated Britpop band, now Mansun. So Tara, why have you picked Mansun as your underrated act?
Because everybody only knows Wide Open Space, and that's not even their best song. They've got so many better songs than Wide Open Space, but that's the only one that ever gets played. And I am always forever trying to bring them to the masses, because I think people, that's the, if you go to if I go to an indie club now, and I'll ask for Mansun, and it'll be that, and it won't be anything else. It won't be Stripper Vicar, which is just as danceable. But yeah, I just think that for your debut album, it's called Attack of the Grey Lantern. For it to be an opus, featuring characters such as Dark Mavis and the Stripper Vicar. And it's a story. You have to listen to it all the way through because every song in it tells you a story. And just to have the brass balls to do that as your debut album, what are you going to, we're going to do something a bit different. It's going to be like it's going to be a concept album about, these weird people. Okay, fine. Here's the money. And they did it. And they did it well. They just ended in a horrible, horrible car crash. not a literal one. They're not dead. But yeah, they ended really, really badly on terrible terms, which makes me sad.
A bit like the Verve.
Well, yeah.
So I'm interested, Bab. So what's your memory of Mansun?
So I can tell you that I know Wide Open Space, but I also know I Can Only Disappoint You. That was my knowledge coming in to this. And I, again, not been traumatized by the indie discos. I love to listen to Wide Open Space when I'm driving, which is very rare because I don't own a car. And I was wondering if it was going to be similar to the underrated band that we picked for the first Britpop episode, Shed 7, where it's like, yeah, they're one of those bands that, you know a couple of songs, but probably that's only scratching the surface. And yeah, it seems on first listen that they very much are. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to getting stuck into this with you, especially as I know that if Fran had made a Mansun top playlist, it might have been quite different. Isn't that right, Fran?
Yeah, I was absolutely shocked when you put your 5 songs up.
Really?
Yeah, we can talk about that in a minute. But it's like, oh, interesting choices here. In the 1996, I was into Duran Duran and Depeche Mode. And for some reason, I had not gotten into Britpop. For some reason, I was looking into the past. I think I enjoyed VH1 more than MTV in those years. And then I got a girlfriend, lucky me, and she was more into The Enemy and Melody Maker. And she introduced me to some Britpop bands. And I knew like Pulp and Blurb. I didn't know Mansun. And she played me The Attack of the Grey Lantern. And I was like, oh, this is different. It sounds more like new wave. It seemed to be influenced by, Tears of Fears and Duran Duran and XTC more than like, the Beatles or the Kinks. And I thought, this is very different. And I kind of always enjoyed the left field art form. And so yeah, my first ever concert after Prodigy was Mansun in Southampton Guildhall in 1997. And yeah, because of them, I fell in love with indie music, and I bought every single single. I own every single thing Mansun ever produced. I had the posters on the wall because they've sometimes put posters inside the CDs. I bought the tape if it had a different song on the tape. I bought vinyl for Mansun. I'd never played in my entire life just because I knew it had a B-side I'd never heard. I obsessed with them. I would go on to Yahoo chats about Mansun back in 1998. I think I was one of the hardcore Yahoo chat members in the late 90s. I remember when Little Kicks came out, we knew someone on the inside who was sneaking us the tracks, and we were downloading the track each day. And like the first single, being more disappointed with each track we discovered from the Little Kicks. And yeah, and they just blew my mind. And I think the first album was the #1 album.
Yeah, it was.
And so it's just so weird. How can a band have a #1 album and people know one song? I just find it bizarre. The music videos were mental. Tax Loss. The music videos.
The Tax Loss video is brilliant.
They literally were given, I think, £200,000 budget £25,000 budget, and the music video is throwing £25,000 in King's Cross.
£5 notes. £5 notes.
Incredible.
With Mansun stickers on in Liverpool Street.
Yeah.
Inspired by EMF, perhaps.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, not EMF. God,
the KLF or
KLF.
Yeah.
EMF, that's something else.
Yeah, and they barely appeared in the music videos.
No.
And they were just, an enigma. And I enjoy the fact that in Melody Maker, they would have like these sort of love stories between Chad and Paul, and they would wear makeup and wear boiler suits, and live they sounded nothing like the album. They sounded more like a post-punk band than what you'd hear on the album. And I just thought they just sounded so much more interesting than Oasis and Shed 7. I like Shed 7 and Oasis, but Mansun were my band, and I kind of felt like a bit of an outsider. And I think Suede, Pulp and Mansun were the bands for the outsiders, and unfortunately Suede and Pulp and the Manics have still adored and playing to thousands of people, and Manson are the forgotten freaks of the 90s in some way. And
they're the also-rans. Really.
Yeah, and I think it's completely unfair. And I think they have so many decent singles which should be played on radio to this day. I know, rant over.
Yeah, no, you're both clearly very passionate. I was thinking when you said, how is it possible that a band gets to number one with their first album? I was going to say probably because they were enemies' darlings. No, I mean that they were the tastemakers for indie music. It was so much more concentrated in the 90s. So all you need is like, I don't know, a TFI Friday appearance and a couple of NME covers, and probably that's what did it for them.
Luckily,
right?
TFI loved them. They always were on.
They're always on.
Yeah,
they were always on.
But yeah, it's just weird. You know, people. If I mention Manson, they go, "Oh, they the one hit wonder." I'd say they've had like 3 like top 5 albums. It's just you know, they were just ignored from history for some bizarre reason. So yeah, how do you come to choosing these 5 songs, Tara?
They were, well, Disgusting wasn't a single, but the others were. I wanted to pick ones that are underrated. That's what I did. I picked the ones I think were underrated, and the first song, Disgusting, was supposed to be a single, and the record label didn't want it as a single. So I think if Disgusting had come out, they would have been bigger. I genuinely do, because I think it's different, but it's catchy enough. Sorry, that was my first choice, Disgusting by Mansun.
So, Babs.
My first impression. So bearing in mind that at this point I know Wide Open Space and I can only disappoint you, I was like, what the fucking hell is going on here? This is not at all I was expecting. Is this Fantasia for the 90s? You know, there's this very psychedelic opening with some piano synths, and I put spoons, ? I don't know what's going on. You know, it has that beginning, then it goes into a more traditional song, but there is still the psychedelic elements there. And I was just so pleasantly surprised with that. I love the bass, the distorted voice, the percussion, the bells. Reminded me a bit of Delays, actually, which I thought Fran might approve. And lyrics wise, I've written that it's like a more sophisticated Charmless Man. So yeah, and I think the fact it's called Disgusting, that's such a, you know, it really stops you in your tracks it's a
jarring word, isn't it?
Jarring, there we go. That's the word I was looking for. It's a jarring title, and it's such a great song talking about something so horrible. I found it incredibly original. Yeah, I loved it.
I've always wondered if it's about Paul Draper himself singing in the third person. He seems, I think there's a theme between all these songs we're going to talk about. They're all very self-depreciating tracks, aren't they, really? I'm going to say that this is my least favorite song on the album. And on the debut album, this is the only song I'd ever skip.
Oh, okay.
That's why I found it so shocking. His voice is, I don't like the way he sings in it, the vocal. It's very different to how he usually sings. I enjoy the guitar sound, I enjoy the weird percussion, but yeah, I can never get away with his vocal, and he sounds quite whiny in the chorus. So yeah, it never did much for me, unfortunately. So when I saw him a few years ago doing the entire album,
talk to me about that.
I wasn't a very different venue, and again, I thought, oh yeah, I've not heard this for like 10 years or 15 years, and yeah, it still went straight over my head. So not a fan of Disgusting, but we can move on to a better track.
Sorry, you had to bring up the live show.
So if you quickly mention that. So Babs, on Paul Draper, since he's become a solo artist, he enjoys milking Manson's legacy.
Oh God, yeah, he milks it. He milks everything.
Also, a song called "Legacy" is a Manson song, but he has brought out, you know, the 5th anniversary, the 8th anniversary, the 12th anniversary. Every time there's anything to do with Manson, he tries to make money out of it, like T-shirts. And then recently, he's been doing for tours of the debut album. I think he's done the 6th one too. And when he did the tour of the debut album, he played a UK tour. I saw him in Portsmouth, and then he played Nottingham, and Tara was in attendance, right, Tara?
Yeah. So the gig was he was playing Attack of the Grey Lantern in full, and it's my favorite Manson album. It's my favorite albums, and I got a ticket. So the first half of the gig was him playing his new stuff. He played some of that. He was drunk, and he was swearing at his band. He was swearing at the crowd. He went off, came back on to do Attack of the Grey Lantern. It was just an absolute car crash of a gig, and it was horrible.
Could he sing, or he's slowing?
Column A, column B.
Oh, really?
He sacked his keyboard player on stage. She was like crying. It was awful, and he abandoned the gig. And my friend had driven me to Nottingham because I live in Coventry, so it's maybe like an hour's drive, and I wept all the way home. And I know how pathetic that sounds.
No, I get it.
But it's one of my favorite albums, and every other gig had been perfect. And then I was at the shit one, which, looking at things that have happened to me in my life over the past couple of years, some would say I was probably the jinx. It's probably my fault that it went wrong.
Britpop men, the curse.
Exactly.
I mean, he wasn't sober in Portsmouth, and he was sinking the buds all the way through the concert.
Yeah.
But yeah, he never got that bad.
No, it was awful. And then he had a tirade on Twitter about it, and then this whole thing, and everything, like, it got really badly reported on. Well, not badly, it got properly reported on, that it was just. And then it was like, I've had something came up suddenly, a family crisis just before the gig, and it's like, look, just say you were too drunk. I would accept that more. I would accept the honesty of that. But since then, I kind of had he was on about doing like a 6 tour, and I slagged them off on Twitter, and the Mansun Twitter page got back to me and said, oh, well, if we offered you free tickets to the 6 gig, would you take them? And I thought about it, and then I replied and said no, because I didn't want to see the 6 gig. Since then, me and him have made friends. I bought some handwritten lyrics off him. I bought the handwritten lyrics to I Can Only Disappoint You, so we've been in contact, and he's like, he apologized again. He gave me the lyrics for cut price, and he said I can guest list on if he does the 6 tour. Whether he remembers that, it's another story. But I've got it in writing.
I'm back to what's your next pick, Tara?
My next pick is Fool from Little Kicks, which apparently everybody except me hates.
Well, it was the final single for a long time. I liked Fool because I like pop music. I think the problem is that it's a very much a commercial pop song, and a lot of Mansun fans want weird, and this is not weird.
No.
And the video is interesting. It has,
I really like the video.
Yeah, it has like Jesus coming back, and no one believes it's Jesus. So I thought I was fine with this. Like, compared to some songs on Little Kicks, this was a highlight for me. But I think Paul Draper did say that he wrote Little Kicks for the record company, and the first albums he wrote for himself, and you can kind of hear that. So I like, it's a more up-tempo track than the rest of the album. This rest album's kind of dirgy, so it's a nice surprise. I don't think I've ever heard it live. I saw them on tour. I can't remember them playing it, to be fair. I think they were kind of a bit embarrassed of it. So yeah, it's always been seen as one of his lesser loved tracks by the hardcore Mansun fans.
Well, that's it. But Mansun is such an odd band because they can do pop, but 6 is a prog rock album. And that is, Little Kicks is a mixture. And then 6 is like, yeah, I've done this for the record company. Now, what are you doing for your second album? Doing a prog rock album. It's like, what? Are you joking? So, but no, Fool, I like, it is a good pop song. It's got an interesting video, and it lifts me up.
Right. So, Babs, what's your thoughts?
And unfortunately, it brought me down.
I thought this would be a no-brainer.
So I thought the opening was quite promising, but yeah, Fran, you know me, it's a bit too stadium-y for me, is what I wrote, just to not use the word melodic a million times. I like the ooze at the beginning and the sort of woozy guitar in the bridge. Not so much my cup of tea, but I wondered, because you were talking, Fran, about the themes between the songs, and yeah, I found it very interesting to read about Attack of the Grey Lantern. I think on Wikipedia it says Paul Draper said that Attack of the Grey Lantern is not a fully fledged concept album. It was his intention for it to be, but then he ran out of steam. He called the LP half a concept album, a con album, and then All Music referred to the album as a song cycle. And I was like, bloody hell, this is getting there. This is getting complicated. On themes, it feels like whoever is being talked about in Fool is who the person disgusting is talking about.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I was like, is there a link here that I don't know about?
Yeah.
Manson fans tell me, yeah, is this a theory?
I think it's him talking about himself personally, but hey,
yeah,
because he used to always use characters, hence the stripper Vicar or Mavis. It's quite interesting when he refers to himself as an I being a fool again. But it's So I think for a lot of people they're quite pissed off that would be the last ever Manson single was not their favorite. But luckily they then came back for an encore a few years later. But what's your next pick, Tara?
Over underrated. Sous-évalué. Überschätzt. Sopra sottovalutato. Over underrated.
It's Negative from 6. Because I like how it starts. And have you ever told a lie to hide a lie is a great line. Lyric, he's just really good at lyrics. He really is, and I bought 6 when it came out, and I listened to it once and threw it aside because I thought this isn't Manson. This isn't the Manson I know. And I got back into it maybe about 15 years ago, and it's one of my favorites now. And it's just it's different again. It's different again. So we've had Disgusting, which was different, Fool, which is different. This is different again. It's quite proggy.
Although I would say it's probably one of the most straightforward tracks on 6, really. I mean, it's just I think it's one of the only songs that's under 5 minutes, and it doesn't have like 4 different sections. There's probably why it was a single. I love the guitar sound, the down, and at first I kind of found it a bit. I was shocked by it because this wasn't Tax Loss, but it grew to be one of the best singles I think they've done. And I love the way that you can have a punched chorus, which is the opposite. I look downwards, I'm feeling negative, but it feels like punching the ceiling. I love it. I've always been a big fan of Negative. Babs, what's your thoughts?
I'm a fan of Negative as well. And I noticed that it was in 6/4. Like, all the songs in 6/4, or is it just this one?
Oh, no, they go all over the place.
They're all over the place.
All over the place, yeah, right. I guess, one of the other picks is from there. I don't think it is. Yeah, I thought it was a really filmic beginning. I've written spacey guitars, really driving bass again. I love the breaks, and the drum almost sounds like Rocket Fire or similar. I feel like this should definitely soundtrack Black Mirror or some sci-fi or something like that. And even the sort of spaceman voice effect in the bridge is great. And I really enjoyed the vehicle slowing down noises at the end. That's what I've written. And for this one, I definitely noticed the lyrics, and I thought it was quite funny because they were a little bit relevant to COVID times, talking about, can't be bothered getting up today, my future's looking positive, no one even picked on me today, so you tested negative, panic in your bedsit goes away. You convert to Scientology to feel part of something once again. I thought this was a really great song, and totally agree, Tara, like different each time, and that's what surprised me each time.
After Legacy, the first single, this was again a different shift, and that's kind of what you like about Manson. They're always different, but still Manson. I think his voice is very much his own thing, and so it's always that the guitar sound of Chad and Paul's voice always made it Manson, but they'd always will be trying to do new things, and that's kind of why I think their third album hurt, because it felt like, oh, you're just going through the motions. You're not doing something completely bonkers again, But I guess you can't always be going crazy with each album. There's only so many times you can reinvent yourself. But what's your next pick, Tara?
Being a Girl.
Yes, please.
Yeah. Okay. Fun fact: Danny Dyer is in the video to Being a Girl.
I just saw the video before this record, and I was like, "Is it? Oh, it is. Yeah." But so Fran, you said yes, please, right? So,
because I think it's I think now it's probably one of the best ever singles. When I first heard it, I was like, oh, what the hell was that? It was like a 2-minute punk song. It was like, what? And the video was like, what?
And the drum intro is like Don't Stand So Close to Me by The Police.
Oh yeah, never thought. And I hated it when I first heard it. I bought it.
I didn't like it when I first heard it.
I bought it because I liked the B-sides. And then I listened to it again and again. Then when I heard the album version, which is a whole different thing, it's like like a 7-minute track, and
that's why they couldn't have it as a single.
So the second part of Being a Girl, I think I love even more than the single with Chad's guitars like riffs like that, and Paul's lyrics about about Bolswood and Froggy doesn't see that.
A frog, it cannot comprehend the sea.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, okay, fair enough, Paul.
And Andy's drumming's great as well.
Yeah.
Andy's a great drummer.
Yeah, Paul has a great voice, and I don't know who the bassist is. Stove. They are excellent musicians. That definitely comes across in all the songs.
So I've got a feeling, I don't know how much of Stove actually played in his recordings, but I saw him live, and he never seemed. He was playing okay. Yeah, he was coping.
I only saw them twice. I saw them when I was a student. They played at De Montfort Uni, and I saw them at Glastonbury. And the great thing from that was there was a double rainbow when they were on stage. That was pretty cool. That's something to remember. But yeah, Stove was there for the eye candy, I think, really.
It's lovely having a bass player called Stove and a guitar player called Chad.
Chad. It doesn't sound real to me, especially with the connotations that it has now. But yeah, I bloody love this song. I put it sounds like they sound like a 3-chord American band. At the beginning, really like American style. Then it becomes really jarring, psychedelic. I mean, when has Balsa-wood, Marx and Frogs been in the same in the same category? And I thought, title wise, I was thinking of To Be a Young Man by Nadine Shah, and I'm like, this is a different vibe. And the video with all the men being manly and exercising was very fun. And I thought it was just an interesting topic as well of is this about, not liking gender roles? Could it be even about being trans or something like that? I don't know. It's really open, very open to interpretation, especially the later the song goes. But incredibly original.
Yeah, and I think Paul would always wear makeup and
Paul always wore makeup.
And paint his nails. It's always like they were a fluid band before that was really a thing, so it made sense.
Yeah, if you look through some old photos as well, there's Stove in like a dress and Chad in a dress and stuff. So
cool.
It was
cool.
Yeah. So I'm happy. I'm happy you enjoyed Being a Girl.
No, really, really great stuff. Yeah, no, honestly, because I enjoyed all the Verve songs, I'm like, these are the best 2 playlists I think we've ever had. I had a great time. Listening to. It was great. Overrated, underrated. Good vibes.
What's the next track, Tara?
The last one's Slipping Away, which is from Kleptomania, which I know Kleptomania was the one when Stove had left. There are some good tracks on it. I almost picked Love Is.
Love Remains,
which is brilliant. Love Is, Butterfly is great, but I love the fact that I'm just going to talk about a different song for a second. Butterfly, it's a 7-second intro before anything starts, so it's just silence for 7 seconds, and then it's just like kicks in, because he just could get away with it and do what he wanted. By then, he sort of said, "I'm doing this." Okay. But yeah, Slipping Away. I don't know. It's another good single, and it's different again. I think it's probably harks back a bit more to Attack the Grey Lantern in the sound of it. But yeah.
Do you enjoy his scream at the start?
Always.
Yeah, I wrote. They love a little jarring start, don't they? Because it comes in. I thought the atmosphere that is created by the music really matches the lyrics. My fear is slipping away from me, my lazy feeling filling my skin. You're like, oh, it really, it feels very nice. And I thought it was another great bass and drum combo, but this one felt a bit less original compared to the other ones. To me, I've put voice-wise and music-wise, it feels a bit Oasis-y, a bit psychedelic. Although, no Oasis song is going to have 1 minute of some piano and soft percussion and wordy synths at the end. So, on that, they remain unsurpassed.
So, a bit of information regarding this track for you, Babs. So, they recorded Kleptomania, which is their 4th album, and they finished about 75% of it, and then it broke up. So, what you're hearing is a guy track, which is why it sounds a bit more less commercial, and they wanted to add more guitars to it and another vocal. That's why it sounds a bit like more
sparse
compared to other Mansun tracks. The ending, I opened up my Cut to Mania box set to see if it mentions the ending, because I thought, oh, was that going to be for another song, or because it seems like it's going into another song, and I can't find anything about it, so I've got no idea why that piano section's about at all. So yeah, and they toured in 2002, and they played 4 or 5 songs off this album to us, and we all get excited thinking, oh my god, they've gone back to the Attack of the Great Anthem sort of rocky tracks, and then we never heard from them for a year and a half, and we got an announcement saying Mansun had broken up. And we're like, what the fuck? And then because we knew they had toured these new songs and they'd been in the studio, Mansun fans then asked Parlophone, can you release their 4th album, because we know that they've recorded loads of it. And then, a year later, they released it. But what's interesting is, sorry,
I was going to say, isn't there like 4 parts of it?
Yes,
like loads of, there's like 4 discs of Kleptomania.
Yeah, so one is like the remains of the sessions. Disc 2 is like the B-sides, and disc 3 is like the some rarities. That became like a little mini box set. But and then in it he tells you, with each song, like how far they got. So if you listen to Stepping Away, there's barely any bass on the verse at all. It's just a guitar and some drums, because you can hear. I'm surprised Paul Draper didn't go back and re-sing his vocals. I don't know why he wasn't allowed to do that, because he mentions a lot, oh, this is just a guide vocal, I wanted to add backing vocals to, so I wanted to do the rest of this. So why didn't he? I don't understand why
he possibly wasn't allowed.
So yeah, so this was the band breaking up, and this is the remains. And if you listen to the remaining tracks, it could have been a great album, and it'd be lovely to hear. And he says, oh, in a few songs, this isn't even the finished version. They had rewritten the chorus, but they never got to record it. So it's really frustrating to know. What could, it's going to be amazing.
What could have been?
So they just broke up, and that was the end of Mansun, and. We've never heard again from Stove or Chad.
Chad is a health and wellness coordinator. I think he's a masseur in a physio fella.
Nice.
Down Norfolk somewhere.
Yeah, it's a sad thing for me, because I adored them, and now I kind of feel tainted by them, unfortunately, because of how it all ended.
Yeah, I do to an extent as well, especially since Andy doesn't Andy is still in touch with Draper, and Andy doesn't seem to be getting a cut of anything. It's all Paul is getting it all.
Exactly, and Andy is what it seems to be, like a lovely guy as well. So
yeah. I mean, there is an argument for the fact that Paul wrote virtually everything, but does he really need all that money?
Wow. And as Pap said, he's a quality drummer, and now he doesn't even get to play with Paul Draper's Sourdough Show. So,
although they were talking about that, they were talking about him maybe playing, but I don't know if that was just drunken.
Yeah, if they did 6, I think Andy has to do it. He is 6. Of course. The tempo is constantly changing. He's holding it together.
Incredible. Yeah, he's got to do it.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry, Babs. So we keep.
I'm actually enjoying it. I was just thinking about how I've not had anywhere near that kind of contact with bands that I like. I think I'm a bit less obsessive, a fan of anything these days. So I don't know if I could be fucked to kind of go on the Yahoo chat. I as a teenager, as a young adult, absolutely. I think the most I do now is kind of comment on Instagram every now and again. But yeah, it's amazing how much information and how frustrating it is actually to have that contact, but nothing has happened since 2004.
Yeah, I just think.
Yeah, I feel for you guys.
A part of me would prefer him just to be an enigma. To be fair, I just,
if he just didn't have these random meltdowns on social media, because every time I see it, I'm just like,
here we go again.
Yeah, you need an intervention.
Well, it just sounds like he needs a good PR person and perhaps some help.
I hope he does. So, Mansun, underrated, perhaps, or
100%. Looking at their Spotify statistics, which is what I like to do, they only have 106,000 monthly listeners. So Wide Open Space is their most played track with 9.1 million, which is a lot. But the next most played is the Stripper Vicar with just under 1 million. So really, it must be, Wide Open Space on a playlist or something like that. And I thought coming in, they're another Embrace. sorry, Fran. They're another, Britpop band that have a couple of good singles, that's it, and they are clearly so much more. So I wholeheartedly agree with, I imagine both of you, that they are very underrated.
Yay!
Yeah.
There's also a link to the Verve as well, in that they were called Mansun, spelled Manson, but Charles Manson's estate got in touch and told them to drop the name. So they are spelled Mansun. They are spelled Mansun, Mansun. And when asked, Paul Draper said it's because of the Verve song "Man of Sun."
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
We
not just thrown together.
We do love a link.
But also, we've talked about, so Shed 7 are from York. How many bands do you know from York? Manson are from Chester. How many bands are there from Chester? Genuine question. I don't know any other ones.
Do you know what? Like Hollyoaks is based in Chester, and they used to play quite a lot of Manson songs. And I thought it's just on purpose because they're from Chester. The only time we ever heard Manson was on Hollyoaks and TFF Friday.
My boyfriend is technically from near Chester and is younger than me and had never heard of Manson. I'm afraid to say. So
get rid.
And I'm like, you're going to listen to them now. So I'm passing it on even to the younger generations. You'll be happy to hear.
You can play them Fallout, which samples the Sugar Plum Fairy.
Yeah.
Oh.
Which, which most Britpop bands were doing back in those days, yeah.
Clearly.
I saw them on that documentary in Japan. They're quite big in the Far East. I think
they were enormous in Japan, yeah.
And Thailand for some reason, they loved them. I think they love any guys with like no violence. They was like Suede as well. And they asked him, do you have a rivalry with Kuda Shaker? And Paul James was like, what the fuck? Like, how are we even similar to Kuda Shaker in any fucking way? It's quite funny how they
bit psychedelic.
Well, Manson and Suede to me were similar, and then all these other guitar bands I think were very different.
No, I don't know. I always thought Manson was still sort of outside on their own.
Well, maybe, but I think with people who I found who liked Suede would like Manson, they were similar in that way. Maybe because they weren't like about downing pints. Which was a laddie thing, as you mentioned back in 1997. Manson were never in Loaded magazine, as far as I know. So that could be.
I mean, given the video to being a girl, that doesn't surprise me that it wouldn't be their vibe. But no, I think they're extremely different to most Britpop bands at the time. Like this is just 5 songs. Like I'm very keen to go and listen to more. So yeah, Fran, for sure, we can wax lyrical about them on future episodes as well. No, I'm really pleasantly surprised.
But this is why Little Kicks was such a weird because from the art, even the artwork was Anton Corbijn. Just like they went very, very mainstream, and it's like this is not what we expected. So it kind of. I
went to an Anton Corbijn exhibition, and I don't remember seeing a Manson photo.
Oh, really?
many others, but not Manson. Yeah.
But if you listen to 6 if you have some time, and you'll be shocked. It even has Tom Baker doing.
Tom Baker's on it. I was about to say Tom Baker's
doing
on it.
Some narrative in the middle randomly.
Wow.
This is why they probably weren't made big in America, old Manson. For various reasons, they are very British eccentrics. I guess would be the term. So, thank you for being our guest today, Tara. And
you're welcome. Thanks for having me. It's been great fun.
If our audience would like to hear more from you, how can they find you?
Right. So I'm on Twitter at the Bluest Star. I do a horror podcast. It's called The Killing. It's a Patreon one, so there is a Twitter account for that, which is at Killing. So if you want to find out more, go there. There's a Facebook page for it as well, and I do a radio show on a Sunday evening, 6 till 8 on Edge Radio, which is based in Gloucestershire, but I do it from this very room. I used to do hospital radio, then I got the sack for something I'm not going to go into.
Listen to her Patreon podcast to find out more. There we go. You're welcome.
But yeah,
Manson have a song called The Edge as well, so another link.
Yeah, I think they're going to be my 3 from 1 artist this Sunday, so get listening. It's been great.
That's all right. We love having guests and we love chatting about music. So
yeah, you're a great guest, Tara. Thank you so much for coming on.
No worries. Thanks a lot.
Babs, anything you want to add?
Oh God, now you've put me on the spot. Well, I am hopefully coming to England soon, where you have freedom. We're about to get freedom here in Belgium, indoor gigs and stuff like that. So I am I'm hoping to pop over and see some live music. Very
we
excited.
have freedom, but we have no petrol to.
Yeah.
drive
Oh,
anywhere.
true.
Today I got petrol this morning, and it felt so erotic. Oh my god, I filled up. Look at me, F1. Look at me.
Look at me. Yeah, just to let you know, because I saw that there was some minister saying like, "Oh, the same thing's happening in other countries." In Belgium, it's not. So,
Of course, it's not. No,
it's not.
Yeah, we know we get
know
told
why.
lies.
Yeah. Good luck with that.
Thank you.
Over underrated. Sous-évalué. Överschätzt. Överunderskattad. Over underrated.
So that was Britpop Part 2. I hope you enjoyed and are in agreement that Mansun really are an interesting concept band for the Britpop era. And we are truly hoping that no one comes after us after discussing, let's say, the less fun elements of the Mansun band and everything that's come between. But that shouldn't stop the enjoyment of the music at all. And if you do want to chase after us or support us, you can find us on Instagram at overunderatedmusicpod. We're on Twitter at OUmusicpod, or you can email us overunderatedmusicpod@gmail.com. Happy Britpop listening. Happy times. See you next time.